An old man lies face down on a black volcanic rock in the middle of the Aegean Sea. The wind is howling, but it is not the wind that has thrown him to the ground. He is the last of his friends left alive. Every single man he walked the dusty roads of Galilee with has been executed, crucified, or run through with a sword. Now, he is in exile, banished to a brutal penal colony to break rocks until he dies. He is tired. He is grieving. And then, he hears a voice. It does not sound like a normal human voice. It sounds like a roaring waterfall, like the crashing of the ocean against the jagged cliffs of his island prison. When he turns around to see who is speaking, the sight is so terrifying, so blinding in its absolute, raw power that the old man's knees simply give out. He collapses. The historical text says, "He fell at the feet of this figure like a dead man." We will get back to that. Old man. We will get back to that black rock and the terrifying voice that speaks to him. But you need to hold that thought, because what happens next on that island is the ultimate culmination of a pattern that started thousands of years earlier. A pattern that changes everything about how you understand the darkest, most terrifying moments of your own life. You have probably heard people say that God says, "Fear not," exactly 365 times in the Bible. One for every day of the year. People love to put that on coffee mugs. They print it on bookmarks. They use it as a guarantee that you should never feel anxiety, that if you just have enough faith, you will always be brave. They are wrong. This is not a story about a number. This is not a story about a verse. This is not a story about a doctrine. This is a story about every time the God of the universe leaned down into the dirt, looked at a terrified, desperate person whose life was falling completely apart, and spoke two words, not as a harsh command to stop being human, but as a promise that he was standing right there in the panic with them. When you look closely at these moments, when you pull back the layers of history and look at the actual people who heard these words, you find something shocking. God does not shout, "Fear not," from a safe, quiet distance. He does not say it to people who have their lives together. He says it to people who are staring death, shame, and absolute ruin right in the face. People just like you, in those moments when the floor drops out from under your life. Put yourself in the wilderness of Beersheba. The sun is blinding. The heat radiating off the sand is heavy, almost suffocating. There is no shade. There is no water. The skin bottle that was supposed to keep them alive is completely empty. Drying out in the brutal Middle Eastern air, a woman sits alone in the dirt. Her name is Hagar. She is an Egyptian servant. For years, she has been a pawn in someone else's story. Used, abused, and finally cast out into the desert with nothing but the clothes on her back. And her young son, Ishmael. She has walked until she cannot take another step. She has watched her boy grow weak, his lips cracking, his breathing growing shallow. She knows what is coming. And the grief is so violent, so unbearable, that she does something desperate. She places her dying son under a small, withered scrub bush. Then, she walks away. The historical record tells us she went about a bow shot away, roughly 100 yards. She sits down in the dust because she cannot bear to watch her own child take his last breath. She buries her face in her hands. She weeps. You know what that kind of desperation feels like. You know the exact weight of a moment when every option is gone, when the medical report is final, when the bank account is empty, when the relationship is completely, irreversibly broken. And right there, in the scorching silence of the desert, a voice cuts through the air. An angel of God calls to her from heaven. What ails you, Hagar? Fear not, for God has heard the voice of the boy. Here is the part nobody tells you. When you read that phrase, fear not, in the Old Testament, the original Hebrew word is yar. It does not mean a mild sense of worry. It does not mean feeling a little bit stressed. Yar means to stand in awe with shaking knees. It describes a visceral, physical, full-body terror. It is the kind of panic that makes your chest tight and your vision go blurry. God looks at this disposable, cast-out single mother shaking in the dirt, and he does not tell her to pull herself together. He does not demand that she show more faith. He acknowledges the terror. He steps directly into her grief. He says, I see you. I hear the boy. Do not let the panic consume you, because I am here. And he provides a well of water that saves their lives. But it gets stranger, because God does not just speak these words to the helpless and the abandoned. He speaks them to the powerful, right at the moment their strength is about to fail them. Fast forward a few centuries. We move from the burning sands of Beersheba to the muddy banks of the Jordan River. A man named Joshua is staring at the water. He is the military commander of Israel. He is a warrior. But right now, he is a man drowning in grief and carrying a crushing, impossible burden. Moses, the legend, the man who split the sea, the man who spoke to God, face to face, is dead. Moses is gone. And now, the mantle of leadership has fallen squarely onto Joshua's shoulders. Behind him are over 1 million wandering, traumatized, and deeply stubborn people. In front of him is a river at flood stage, and across that river is the land of Canaan. A land filled with literal giants, massive walled fortresses like Jericho, and armies equipped with iron chariots. Joshua is terrified. Of course he is. The sheer scale of the mission is suicidal. And then, the Lord speaks to him. Joshua chapter 1. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord, your God, is with you wherever you go. God does not give Joshua a detailed battle plan right then. He does not hand him a map of Jericho's weak points. He gives him something far more profound. He gives him the promise of his presence, the antidote to Joshua's shaking knees was not a guarantee that the fight would be easy. The antidote was the absolute certainty that he would not be walking into the battlefield alone. Whether you are a grieving mother waiting for the end in a dry desert, or a terrified leader staring down a giant, the pattern is exactly the same. The God of the universe does not wait for you to become brave. He meets you at the exact coordinates of your deepest panic. This is the reality of the Scriptures. God does not shout, "Fear not," from a safe, comfortable distance. He steps directly into the dirt, the grief, and the despair. If this changes how you see the Bible, take 1 second to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. It helps us keep making these deep dives, and it ensures you never miss a video. Now, watch what happens next, because the stakes are about to get infinitely higher. A teenage girl sits on a low wooden stool in a one-room house in a hill town nobody important has ever visited. The town is Nazareth. She is mending a garment. The sun is low. And then, the room fills with blinding light. You know the story. You have seen it on 1,000 Christmas cards. But you need to strip away the stained glass and the holiday music and look at the brutal reality of the first century. Her name is Mary. She is barely a teenager, and she is terrified. But she is not just afraid of the supernatural being standing in her bedroom. She is terrified of what his message actually means. In the ancient Near East, an unwed pregnancy was not a kafting piece of local gossip. It was a death sentence. The Jewish historian Josephus writes extensively about the unforgiving, brutal nature of the first century honor and shame culture. If a betrothed woman was found pregnant by another man, the law was absolute. She would be dragged outside the city gates and stoned to death by her own neighbors. That is the terror gripping Mary's chest. The fear of absolute social ruin. The fear of execution. The fear of being abandoned by her family to die in the dirt. And into that suffocating, paralyzing panic, the angel speaks. Fear not, Mary, for you have found favor with God. God does not remove the physical danger. The whispers in Nazareth will still happen. The dirty looks will still come. The threat of divorce is still real. But he steps into her terror and gives her the ultimate assurance that her reputation in heaven matters infinitely more than her reputation in a dusty Galilean village. Stay with me, because the stakes are climbing. We move from the threat of death to the cold reality of death itself. Picture a wealthy, highly respected man tearing through a crowded street. His clothes are expensive, but they are covered in dust. He does not care. His name is Jairus. He is a ruler of the synagogue, a man of immense political power and dignity. But right now, his dignity means absolutely nothing to him, because his 12-year-old daughter is dying. You can imagine the frantic, crushing panic of a parent realizing they cannot save their own child. Jairus finds Jesus surrounded by a massive crowd. He throws himself into the dirt. He begs. He pleads. And Jesus agrees to come. They start walking toward the house. But they are too late. People from Jairus' own estate push through the crowd. They pull him aside. You can feel the floor completely drop out from under this father. As they whisper the words every parent prays they never hear. Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? It is over. The worst has happened. The nightmare is real. And this is where it gets remarkable. Jesus ignores the messengers. He turns to this shattered, hollowed-out father, and he says 5 words. Do not fear, only believe. When the author Mark writes this down in the Greek New Testament, the word he uses for fear is phobio. It is the root of our English word for phobia. It means to be put to flight. It means a sudden, overwhelming panic that makes you want to turn and run away. Jesus looks at a man who has just been handed the death notice of his little girl, and he tells him not to run from the pain. He tells him to stand his ground in the middle of his darkest, most agonizing nightmare. Why? Because the author of life is standing right next to him. And moments later, Jesus walks into that house, takes a dead girl by the hand, and tells her to get up. God does not say, "Fear not," because the world is safe. He says it because he is sovereign over the things that terrify you the most. We have seen a mother abandoned in a desert, a general staring down a fortress, a teenager facing social ruin, and a father standing over his dead child. But what happens when the very forces of nature turn against you? It is pitch black on the Mediterranean Sea. The wind is screaming. For 14 straight days, a massive, apocalyptic hurricane known as the Euroclydon has been battering a wooden grain ship. There has been no sun. There have been no stars. Deep in the belly of that doomed vessel is Paul of Tarsus. He is an aging apostle, chained below decks, being transported to Rome to stand trial before Nero. Roman historians like Tacitus paint a grim picture of these prisoner transports. You were entirely at the mercy of the elements and the guards. And right now, the elements are winning. The seasoned sailors have completely given up. They have thrown the cargo overboard. They have thrown the ship's tackle overboard. The book of Acts tells us that all hope of being saved was finally abandoned. The noise of the splitting wood and the roaring waves is absolute, deafening chaos. And in the middle of that blinding darkness, an angel of God stands beside Paul. Fear not. Paul, you must stand before Caesar. Notice what God does not do. He does not immediately stop the wind. The ship is still going to be torn apart. They are still going to crash headfirst into a reef. But God anchors Paul to a promise that transcends the storm. He tells Paul that the Roman Empire and the raging ocean do not hold the pen to his story. Which brings us back to where we started. To the howling wind on the Aegean Sea, to the black volcanic rock. The old man lying face down in the dirt is the Apostle John. He is the very last surviving disciple of Jesus. Everyone else is dead. He is exiled, isolated, and carrying the unbearable grief of a lifetime of loss. When he hears that voice like a roaring waterfall and sees the blinding, terrifying glory of the resurrected Christ, his knees give out. The terror is absolute. He collapses like a dead man. But Christ does not leave him in the dirt. He does not shout at him from heaven. John writes down exactly what happens next in the first chapter of Revelation. Christ steps forward. He reaches down, and he touches him. He laid his right hand on me, saying, "Fear not, I am the first and the last, and the living one." This is the absolute peak of the biblical narrative, and it is speaking directly to you right now. Maybe you are not on a sinking ship in the Mediterranean. Maybe your storm is a sterile hospital waiting room at 3 in the morning. Maybe it is the moment the doctor walks in with a clipboard and suddenly will not make eye contact with you. Maybe it is the deafening silence of an empty house after the relationship completely shatters. It is that terrifying, universal realization that you are fundamentally out of control and the floor is dropping out from under your life. God does not demand that you feel brave in that waiting room. He does not ask you to fake your faith. He steps into the sterile lighting. He puts his hand on your shaking shoulder, and he says the exact same words he spoke to Hagar in the dirt, to Joshua at the river, to Mary in her room, to Jairus in his grief, to Paul in the storm, and to John on the rock. I see the panic. I know the terror. But do not let it consume you. Because I am the first, I am the last, and I am right here with you. When you look at the entire scope of the biblical narrative, from the scorching deserts of the ancient Near East to the pitch-black waves of the Mediterranean Sea, a massive, undeniable truth begins to emerge. First, you realize that fear not is never a demand for bravery. When God looks at a terrified person, He is not telling them to suppress their humanity. He is not asking them to pretend the giant does not exist. He does not pretend the storm is fake, or that the grief of losing a child does not physically hurt. He is offering a profound promise of His undeniable presence. The courage to take the next step does not come from digging deep within yourself. It comes entirely from knowing exactly who is standing next to you. Second, your specific panic is fully seen and held. God did not just hand down a generic, blanket statement of comfort from the clouds. He leaned into the dirt with a disposable servant. He stood on the muddy riverbank with a grieving general. He stepped into the chaotic, messy reality of a teenage girl and a shattered father. Whatever room you are sitting in right now, whatever financial ruin or broken relationship you are staring down, He sees the exact coordinates of your terror. You are not invisible to Him. And third, the same voice that spoke the cosmos into existence is the exact same voice speaking into your darkest night. The God who holds the spinning universe together is the one reaching down, putting a hand on your shaking shoulder, and telling you that the empire, the storm, and the grave do not hold the pen to your story. Before you go, I want to know something. Which fear not in this video hit you the hardest? Was it Hagar in the desert, Mary in her room, or John on the rock? Tell me in the comments below. You do not have to be brave today. You just have to know who is in the room with you. Fear not.